Yo, Shortbox Nation, this is Botter, and I'm here to tell you right now that con season starts early this year with the return of Northeast Florida's premier anime, comic book, and sci-fi event, Collective Con. That's right, Northeast Florida's largest pop culture convention returns for its 10th year on March 8th through the 10th at the Prime Osborne Center in Jacksonville, Florida. 10 years of Collective Con, they're pulling all the stops out to make sure this is a can't-miss event. And the guest list they got going, don't even get me started on the guest list. I mean, they've got A-list celebrity guests and voice actors from some of your favorite movies, anime, and video games like Elijah Wood and Sean Ashton, Ray Park, Trisha Helfer, Ross Marquand, Max Middleman, and Bo-Katan herself will be there, Katie Sackhoff. Tell me what other convention is giving you the opportunity to meet Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings, Darth Maul, and One Punch Man all under the same roof. Only at Collective Con. And if you're looking to get some of your favorite comics signed, or if you want to get an original sketch from some of the best comic artists in the world, well, you're in luck, because there'll be plenty of comic and creator guests there, like DC comic artist extraordinaire Clay Mann, Harvey Award-nominated illustrator John Taylor Christopher, Marvel and DC cover artist Chris Stevens, and acclaimed Star Wars author Timothy Zahn. They'll all be at Collective Con this year. And if you're looking to bring the family, or if you want to make a weekend out of it, you're in luck, because there'll be so much going on at Collective Con that weekend in the form of vendors, fan panels, video game tournaments, cosplay contests, after parties, and a bunch of fan events. You can purchase single and 3-day weekend passes now using the link in this episode's show notes, or by going to collectivecon.com to book your tickets and hotel. Buy your tickets now, and I'll see you at Collective Con, March 8th through the 10th. Now let's start the show.
I am the last of my line, and you are a child of the Watch.
The Watch?
Children of the Watch are a cult of religious zealots that broke away from Mandalorian society. Their goal was to reestablish the ancient way.
There is only one way. The way of the Mandalore.
Yo, Shortbox Nation. Welcome back, and new friends tuning in for the first time. Welcome to the Shortbox Podcast, your soon-to-be favorite comic book and pop culture podcast. I'm your host, Botter, and this is the third installment of our Mandalorian Season 2 review series. We'll be covering Episode 3, the Heiress, today, so consider this your spoiler warning for the rest of the episode. We'll be discussing plot points and other Easter eggs going forward. Luckily for you and me, I'm not doing this episode solo. I'm joined yet again with a full crew that consists of Miss Blythe Brumleve.
Hey.
Our lead Star Wars correspondent, Lars Lundquist, is back on the show, calling in.
Hello, guys.
And rounding out today's panel on the fourth mic is the return of a very familiar voice of the Shortbox Podcast, because not only was he a longtime regular co-host, but he was the lead host during what many of our listeners have dubbed the golden years of the Shortbox. I'm honored to welcome back a good friend of mine and your Shortbox Nation. Adam Wallet is with us here today.
The honor is all mine.
So casual and diehard Star Wars fans, we got you covered today. But before we get into the main event, I have some people to thank that help us pay the bills to keep the lights on here at the Shortbox studio. So no hard feelings if you want to fast forward through this part. This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Gotham City Limit, Jacksonville's premier place for comics, toys, collectibles, and more. If you're local, stop by the shop on Southside Boulevard and tell Ben the Shortbox sent you. Lastly, this show is made possible by our Shortbox patrons. They help us maintain and grow the show with donations, ensuring its longevity and the continued production of episodes like the one you're enjoying now. If you're interested in supporting the show and earning our eternal gratitude and some awesome perks along the way, visit patreon.com/theshortbox to become a patron, or click the link in our episode description. With that out the way, let's get into this episode of The Mandalorian, starting with the credits. I felt like this episode had a lot of cameos and co-stars, which means a lot of names for me to butcher, so bear with me. This episode stars Misty Rosas as the Frog Lady, John Cameron as the Frog Man, Mercedes Varnado, a.k.a. the WWE professional wrestler Sasha Banks, as Casca Reeves, Kate Sackhoff as Bo-Katan Kryze, Simon, I'm going to slaughter this last name, Simon Cassianedez as Axwolves. He's from Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars The Clone Wars. And Ashley would kill me if I missed this one. But Titus Welliver as an Imperial Captain. Titus Welliver being from Lost, Bosch, Deadwood, Sons of Anarchy, and just a whole bunch more. And of course, Giancarlo Esposito as Moff Gideon. This episode is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who also directed episode 4, from season 1 and is written by Jon Favreau and continues on from last week's episode. Mando makes good on his promise to get the Frog Lady to the planet Trask to be reunited with her husband. He finds himself braving the high seas alongside some unexpected allies who teach him more about his Mandalorian heritage. Like we always do when it comes to these review episodes, I like to start off with the Easter eggs to kind of get those out of the way. I don't have too many Easter eggs to note for this one, other than this episode is the shortest episode of this season so far. It clocked in at 33 minutes. It is actually the second shortest episode out of the whole series. I think season 1, episode 2, and episode 5 are both tied for shortest, being 30-minute episodes. Lars, did you have any like Easter eggs or things maybe a casual fan might have missed?
No, I mean, not really. It's cool. Like, I really appreciate in The Mandalorian how they, instead of like in the new Star Wars series, they tend to make up a lot of alien species and come up with new stuff, which is cool. But I really like how this series, like, you know, we have Mon Calamari, we have Quarren, we have aliens that we saw, you know, like in the cantina and stuff that you never really got to expand on. And I always appreciate that stuff. As far as Easter eggs, to me, there's not a whole lot of stuff other than the obvious things that are revealed throughout the episode. The only thing that I saw that was cool is that crane that pulled the Razor Crest out looked like it was comprised of parts of like an AT or something along those lines that was repurposed.
Yeah, we when we watched, we joked that was the blue collar brother of like a military AT-AT.
What about you, Adam? Did and it doesn't have to be like, you know, super secret Easter eggs, but were there any Easter eggs that maybe caught your attention that you were happy to see on this episode?
No, I mean, I think I agree with Lars is that there's a bunch of big things that I think we're going to talk about. I mean, so as of I watched it one time on Saturday, and honestly, I was kind of overwhelmed emotionally from the first watch because there were so many really cool things. I like you said that it was the second shortest episode?
Out of the whole series, yeah.
The whole series, it didn't, like first season, there were some that felt short, like, oh man, it's already, this one, it did not feel like it was that short. It made every minute count.
I think this, you know, I think we've addressed this a few times, that I think the biggest critique many of us have heard or maybe even felt personally was that season 1 just was comprised of a lot of episodes that maybe didn't push the story along or were, you know, kind of story or lore heavy. I felt that this episode, despite it being the shortest, Adam, I was in the same boat as you. It didn't feel like the shortest at all. And I wonder if it was a conscious decision by them. For
the first season of most of the things that Dave Filoni has had a large hand in kind of come out, I don't want to say like soft or meandering, but he kind of uses them to explore and do different things. And then the second season of Rebels, second season of Clone Wars, second season of this seems to like, now they're going to kind of let it congeal into something that follows that core storyline.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that the first season in most of those series is sort of laying a foundation
for the characters,
setting a mood, introducing characters, and then from there on, they're allowed to play with them and explore and expand. And I think we're starting to see the fruits of that labor, you know.
Yeah.
now.
Fun fact is that the Yeatle, or whatever we're calling it, the child, wasn't even supposed to be a recurring character. They showed up on set the first episode, and it was such a hit that no, I'm joking.
No, I'm joking. Damn it! No, I put so much stock into your Star Wars opinion and knowledge. Like you had me hooked. Don't do that again, Adam. Come on. Like, how'd you feel about this episode?
I mean, like Adam said, it was very much action packed, and they made every minute count. But I also feel like this episode was really pivotal in setting up the rest of future seasons, this season, future seasons, and spinoff shows, just because of the introduction of so many different characters that I'm aware of Star Wars is like from the movie perspective. I haven't watched any of the cartoon or read any of the comics, but this episode made me want to dive into those universes.
And I think that's a good springboard for our next topic here. I have a feeling that this has probably inspired a lot of fans of the show, of Mandalorian, and maybe, you know, just casual Star Wars fans to maybe dive deeper into, you know, things like Rebels or Resistance or any of the expanded universe books. So Lars, I'll look to you to help us out with this. You know, I had mentioned this episode stars Kate Sackhoff as Bo-Katan Kryze, who I understand also does the voice for her in
Which
Rebels.
was awesome, by the way.
Yeah,
I thought that was
Rebels
great touch.
Lars, if you could kind of help us understand, why is it important that we got the live action introduction of Bo-Katan, and if you could give us like a short version of why she's integral to Star Wars lores and loved by so many fans. Yo, this is Botter. Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I'll keep it brief. I wanted to let you know about a massive sale we have going on over at the Shortbox store on all of our merchandise and apparel. That's theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com. You can now save 20% off your entire order using the discount code YOO, Y-O-O. So if you've been waiting for the right time to finally buy that gauntlet snapback, or if you ever wanted to buy any of the shirts you see me wear on the podcast, well, now's your chance to get them for a steal. We still have a few sizes left of everything, but they won't last long, and once they're gone, they are gone. And then I mentioned that all of our apparel is screen printed on high quality material. None of that heat transfer or direct to garment stuff. Our shirts are some of the most comfortable ones you'll ever wear, and the hats look even better in person. So wear your support for the Shortbox Nation proudly, knowing that you're going to look damn good doing it. Get to theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com as soon as you can, and don't forget to use that discount code YOO, Y-O-O, to save 20% off your entire order. All of this information can be found in this episode's show notes if you want to get there faster. Thanks for not pressing fast forward. Now back to the show.
The episode name, the Heiress, I knew, I was like, oh shit, this is where she shows up, because her sister, who died by the hands of Darth Maul, was Duchess Satine, who ruled over Mandalore and sort of separated. Mandalore was separated into two factions, more sort of like a conservative group that wanted to stick to the old warrior ways. And they went and lived on the moon of Mandalore in exile. And they were called Death Watch, who we end up finding out through this little short, really well done explanation that this is the difference why Din Djarin takes his helmet or doesn't take his helmet off, and why the Night Owls do. The whole Clone Wars, Rebels, all of it's layered with they really spend a lot of time on Mandalorian culture. And she's like one of the last surviving sort of like parts of the hierarchy of that culture, somebody that could bring it all back together and unite this like divided people.
What's the importance of Din kind of learning that he's, his upbringing belongs to, what did she say, like a religious group of religious zealots?
A cult.
Yeah,
almost.
the cult. Yeah, almost.
There's a crucial element that happens at some point, and I don't know. I'm not fully the newest season of Clone Wars that they release. I'm not sure. Haven't finished it yet, so I know that they get into the siege of Mandalore there, but there's a part of Mandalorian history in the more recent times where it was called the Purge of Mandalore. And I think that's where the importance of the divide between the group that Bo-Katan has taken over and then the Death Watch, because they call him they are one of the children of the Watch. So and he also mentioned, there was a snippet in there where he said that Mandalore is poisoned and no one cannot sustain life anymore. And then Bo-Katan suggested that that's not true, that it's just a belief that was perpetrated to kind of keep Mandalorians separated. And there was an event called the Purge of Mandalore that caused exactly what it sounds like. There were like millions of Mandalorians were killed. And what we have now is we have these two factions that are kind of living in like seclusion. And when Jin was rescued during the Clone Wars and by the Death Watch, because you saw they specifically showed that they showed like the Clan Vizsla kind of iconography on there when he saved him as a child. It's like he's pulled into that, and that's all he knows, because they're so spread out and so separated that he wouldn't know any different. I think, and the crucial part, I think what you're getting at here is that it's that he keeps saying that this is the way, and what he discovered was that is not the only way. So it's like he's going to learn from Bo-Katan, hopefully, that what Mandalore really was striving to be.
I feel like this season, at least these early episodes so far, have kind of set up that like they've done a lot of focusing on his how far he's willing to go like with this quest to uphold his Mandalorian heritage and his oath. Do you guys feel like maybe this will pay off in the long run or towards the end? Do you guys see this impacting his journey and taking the child to the Jedis in any way?
Between last episode and this episode, you're seeing him sort of question a lot about everything that he knows, everything that he has grown up with, even a lot of the things that he sort of relies on that is nostalgic to him, like his ship, for one, I think is every episode it inches closer and closer to death. But I also see that he's improving in other ways. Like his dad skills in this episode were top notch. Like he's educating the child, like, you know, mind your manners as he's dropping them off. And then, you know, at the end of the episode where that little octopus is going to try to eat, you know, the child, and he just no look grabs the octopus and then gives it to him to eat. So like his dad skills are improving while he's questioning everything else about his life.
A lot of this stuff seems to speak to like the current like political climate that we live in right now, like how the left and right are very divided, and we're told that and fed that a whole lot. And sort of like there might be hope that there's something that can bring people together that are much different in a positive way. I think it's definitely going to be a plot point and building more on understanding who the Mandalorian is other than just a gunslinger, you know? So I think it's going to be something cool.
Yeah. Like the Mandalorian, the first season and 2 episodes now have established him as having a very specific worldview of having been raised a certain way and following a certain code. And as an orphan who his parents are killed in front of him and he was rescued from war, like that code is the thing that keeps him alive. Mm-hmm. That code is what drives every action that he does and what guides. And now he's finding out that code might not be as much the way as he thinks it is.
It's like a Mormon who goes to the club.
Yeah. And so what I think might happen is that it's kind of like Chekhov's gun, right? Like they set up this whole thing where he can't take his helmet off. He can't take his helmet off. And now he could learn a new path, and you know, the star could finally have his face shown more often if he converts, you know.
And I thought it was interesting to piggyback off of that, because if you pay attention to the music that they play during the episodes, the music that they played when the 2 frog parents meet back up was the same music that they played during episode 4 of the first season when Din and his little, you know, I guess love interest who wanted to take his helmet off. There were a few scenes that they played with her in it, and I thought it had like that sort of love undertone. So that could maybe signal in the future.
Yeah, and it's just like the same director as Potter pointed out. So it may have been a conscious choice by her to do that. So yeah, that's cool.
You know, speaking of Bryce Dallas Howard, because we had mentioned, you know, she directed this episode. Jon Favreau wrote it. I think this was definitely a stronger episode, and not just because of the various cameos and things like that, but just like pacing wise, action wise. I thought this was executed even better with even, you know, a shorter amount of time.
I think for me, seeing her in some capacity related to Star Wars, I was like, oh, great. She's just being handed an opportunity because of who her dad is. And then when you saw that episode, it was like, okay, it could have been a little bit stronger in season 1. And then what really kind of turned me off from her was I guess like the recap where they're doing like the behind the scenes. And you have Jon Favreau who's asking everybody questions, and she's jumping in left and right, answering all the questions. I'm like, shut up. Let other people talk a little. And then I see this episode is directed by her, and I'm like, wow, she definitely like redeemed herself in my eyes.
They're vastly different episodes in scope, right? So like they're in a clearing and a forest for the most part in the season 1 episode. There wasn't a lot of big set pieces. They had the one walker and that was it. But in this is like she's directing scenes that are like the Gazanti cruiser like taking off and like big things and big action scenes and things like that. So it's just different, I think.
Watching her grow a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know, cool. Speaking about like the difference in setting, I think this kind of goes back to one of my favorite aspects that I've mentioned the last 2 review episodes is I love the tonal change in the setting as well. You know, we went from cowboy western in episode 1 of this season to, you know, alien kind of thriller. And then like now we're thrown into a completely different looking setting, like in this kind of seaside dock area. A lot of the action takes place in an enclosed freighter. I think the set designs have also gotten better with these seasons. Like clearly, I feel like maybe the budget has increased and they have more, more ability to do more with better set design and things like that. I do like the setting change a lot as well. Lars, what were some of your favorite scenes or moments from this episode?
I like the comical parts in this a lot. That were like really, they were good, subtle, like the Mon Calamari exchange. You know, like when he gives him the credits to fix the ship, and the little like huffs and groans and you know, just rigging the ship with string and stuff like that. I thought that was funny. And then
but no seatbelt.
When they go to raid the cruiser, like the cargo hold, like that commanding officer cracked me up. Like, it was pretty funny. Yeah, cool. I like that whole scene. I like the comical aspects of this episode a lot. They stood out to me. And especially during like really intense moments, which I think they do really well. And maybe that's just, I don't know if that's like Star Wars brand of humor, but that's always my favorite like jokes like to watch in Star Wars is like in the midst of very tense situations, they can still like kind of add some levity, you know, to it. And I think, Lars, you pinpointed my favorite one. Close the doors. Which ones? Just fucking all of them, please. Like, where are they? They're in the cargo control room. Wait, what? But to have it juxtaposed with Titus Welliver's acting as the Imperial captain, like, yo, that dude is just so menacing, and just like there's a like an air of just like I don't know, just like he's so tense, but I thought he played this Imperial captain like perfectly, because there's still that sense of like regalness and very like structure that I've always enjoyed watching in like the other kind of Imperial high ranking officers in some of the other movies. And like the religious zealot part of it, with like you're willing to die for the Empire, not take a deal and go into hiding, just straight die and chew on some, I don't know, a suicide pill or something. Yeah, that was cool. Without a hesitation, he just shoots his two pilots. Right. Like, it's just like, I know what to do. Okay, done. Long live the Empire. But really, that's a plot point, and they're trying to make Moff Gideon like scarier than we even feel he is. You know, that's how afraid you should be of him. Yeah, I mean, I think if it's okay, I'd like to go back and talk, like, kind of take where Lars left off with kind of some of the history of Mandalore and some of the other points in this episode that I think where they give us information, but then kind of also expose more gaps that we can explore in story wise. So the Darksaber is a symbol of the leadership of Mandalore. Like, the person who wields a Darksaber is the leader of Mandalore, or capable of it. The leader has the right to wield it, rather. And in Rebels, it is a significant part of Sabine Wren's storyline, because she is of House Wren and finds the Darksaber. She's the one that kind of brings it back to Mandalore, and she decides to give it to Bo-Katan because she can't stay and be the ruler of Mandalore over the Mandalorians. So she kind of reunites all the clans outside of Death Watch by giving Bo-Katan the Darksaber. So when we end off with Rebels, it's in her possession. Now we have it where it's not there. And we're talking, so Rebels is right around New Hope era. And then this show is 9 years after that. We'd also, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, in, oh my gosh, what was the movie called? The first
Force Awakens?
No. The first
Rogue One.
Rogue One. Thank you. There was that Easter egg in there when she is scrolling through the computer system looking for the Death Star plan. She sees Darksaber project, and that's interesting because did they already have it at that point, or was that mean that they were aware of it and they were making an effort to try to find it? Assuming that note in the computer system that they put in there, I mean, is referencing the actual Darksaber and isn't just like a code word for another project that the Imperials are doing. They're aware of it. It's in Bo-Katan's possession. Now it's not. And we see Moff Gideon has it. So there's things that we need to still learn there, how it came in their possession and why they care about it so much. And maybe they're just trying to destabilize the Mandalorians, because if they were all united, like, they're a huge pain in the ass to any kind of force who's trying to be an empire. I mean, the big elephant in the room at the very end of the episode when
they literally say you're going to go find Ahsoka Tano.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, and Ahsoka Tano, when we left off in Rebels, was with Sabine Wren going to try to find Ezra, who kind of
It's like the Last Jedi almost.
Yeah, he kind of like
Luke.
he didn't die, but he basically sacrifices he basically makes a sacrifice to get rid of the villain and is nowhere to be found. So it's gonna be really interesting because I kind of feel like if they're gonna show us Ahsoka, who's probably gonna be one of the most emotional times for me ever watching Star Wars because she's amazing. It'd be really amazing.
What is it about Ahsoka that garners so much, I guess, like fan loyalty? Because you're not the only person I've seen like very excited to see Ahsoka's live action debut. And Lars, feel free to chime in too. I think it's safe to say, Lars, she is a fan favorite.
I mean, you've seen her, if you've watched Clone Wars through Rebels, you've seen her as a youngling work her way up through the ranks of the Jedi, be betrayed by the people that she loves, the same Jedi. This is all spoilers. You guys need to fucking watch it. Like, come on.
Wasn't she Anakin's Padawan too?
She was Anakin's Padawan.
She was a fan-hated character in the beginning. Yes. People hated her because
she was annoying. She was a little annoying. She was like his little tag along.
Even in the real world, they're annoying.
But she had in my opinion, throughout Rebels and Clone Wars, she has had the most intricate webbing built of her personality, all the things she's been through, and you get to see all of it.
Yeah, because in Clone Wars, Obi-Wan, we know Obi-Wan from multiple other sources. Mm-hmm. We know Anakin from other places. We know Mace Windu from other places. We know Padme from other places. As Lars said, like, Ahsoka's story is complete. She has complete story arcs told in one kind of area. You know, it's told through Clone Wars. It's expanded in Rebels. No one expected that to happen in Rebels when she shows up, and it was, you know, a pretty amazing kind of revelation. And I think it's because she, as Lars said, she was betrayed by the Jedi, and given the opportunity, when they apologize and welcome her back in, she turns them down. She walks away. And I think a lot of people consider her to be the truest form of a Jedi. Like, she is, like, if you want to bring in kind of real world parallels, right? If you are as like Lars was talking about earlier, if you want to bring in like the Jedi were not meant to be a military force for the Republic, but they slowly were incorporated into that, and their ideals were eroded in the interest of safety and in the interest of like, we have to do something. And then they became kind of like the military arm of the Republic.
Yeah, they were corrupted by Palpatine.
Yes,
more or less.
slowly corrupted little by little over time to where you don't feel like it's happening. And she was able to kind of walk away from that and went rogue, essentially. And is one of the main reasons as to why the rebellion became what it was.
One quick question. So Ahsoka, because of the videos that I've been diving into, they mentioned that she left and she's technically not a Jedi anymore. But Bo-Katan in this episode mentioned, because I went back and watched it and I wanted to hear this exact phrase, and she said, I will take you to the Jedi, or one Jedi, not, you know, multiple Jedi. She said the Jedi. And I wonder if that is plural or if it means, you know, more than one, if Ahsoka is included in that, if maybe you guys have any theories onto if Ahsoka is alone, or if maybe she found, is it Ezra? Is that his name? Maybe that there's more fractions of the Jedi Force, and maybe that wasn't, I shouldn't take it as a literal phrase, as one Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I didn't think about that, but I also think somebody like, you know, this is space, like maybe, you know, vast worlds. Maybe she just isn't up on the knowledge that Ahsoka doesn't consider herself a Jedi as well. People just maybe think lady with a lightsaber, well, it's a Jedi.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's like just common language.
So is it safe to say that if someone was a casual fan, wanted to, you know, go a step, you know, step more into learning more about like Ahsoka or Bo-Katan, and like Mandalorian, some of the things that you guys have brought up, is Rebels kind of the catch-all? Like, would they just be safe starting Rebels and just watching that whole series?
I would say no. Like if you really want to, so I would suggest this, because I suggested it to a friend the other day, is try to find one of those YouTube videos that compiles the guts of Clone Wars, and then watch Rebels. And if you love it, go back and watch Clone Wars.
So wait, why watch a compressed version of Clone Wars?
Because it's so damn long, and the first like couple seasons, it's just politics. It's not really like open to the general like viewer.
Yeah, well, even then, it's just like there's episodes in there. There's literally an episode where like R2D2 and C3PO go shopping. Like it was made at a different time. It was made when there was no Disney buying Lucasfilm. It was kind of like the story of the week, and eventually they carved out space to tell these longer stories. So you can find, there's several of them online if you just look for them there, where they say like these are the must watch episodes of Clone Wars. I think, and I'm pretty sure that Lars agrees, is that Rebels, I think, might be the single best Star Wars thing.
It's like the best Star Wars period.
Yeah, like it encapsulates what is Star Wars. It tells a complete story, develops amazing characters, sets stakes, impacts the larger spectrum of the world. Some of it, though, is enhanced by knowing what happens in Clone Wars. Kind of like our emotional response to seeing Bo-Katan is because we know of her from both Rebels and Clone Wars.
You know, Dave Filoni is credited as the writer and director for episode 5, which I think is interesting because he's the only one. I think this episode and maybe one more episode this season are going to be directed and written by someone else other than Jon Favreau. And Dave Filoni's episode is slated for a November 27th release, so about 2 weeks. Do you guys want to take bets or guesses that we see Ahsoka's cameo then, or maybe other cameos based on his work with other Star Wars franchise, including like Clone Wars, Rebels, or Resistance, etc.?
It would make sense because he kind of co-created Ahsoka with George Lucas. She's definitely one of his characters. So I could see them saying it's like, this is your time. Because really, Dave Filoni this is the time to watch Dave Filoni because he started out as someone. I mean, you guys you said you watched the roundtables.
Yeah, and it made me a fan of him so much.
When he recounted kind of that experience, and he like was cultivated by George Lucas, and he's so smart in knowing when too much George Lucas was too much, and when it was, like finding the kernels that fans really are like capturing, but also staying true to Lucas's vision. And he's only been in animation, so this is his first step, this series, into kind of being on set of a live action and having control over it. Like the franchise is best when has some hand in it. So if he can make the jump to live action, if we can see stuff,
give him the keys to the franchise.
Yeah, like or at least have be one of like a 3-headed monster in control of it, right? Like, because if he can bring the kind of emotion and feeling that happened throughout Rebels and can bring that to live action, it's like the franchise will be in a much better trajectory than it is now. So.
Hey, Lars, do you think Bo-Katan makes a cameo in this series again, considering she's on the hunt for the Darksaber, and that seems to be, currently in possession of Moff Gideon? Do you think we'll see Bo-Katan again?
Yeah, I think at some point it's going to have to be resolved because Moff Gideon is going to be sort of looming over most things that are happening in the series, I think, in one way or another. So yeah, but I don't think same thing with like a definitive answer on like Boba or what's going on with that. I don't think that that's going to happen like soon. I think, a la Avengers Endgame, there's going to be like a super episode maybe where like everyone's popping up and helping out to sort of bring things together.
Yeah, and didn't someone, was it someone had made comment about there being 5 seasons? Like they have it planned out.
Holy shit! I knew about season 3 filming.
Yeah,
already,
they started filming for season 3, but I haven't heard like the total.
I think it was I always mispronounce his name, but the guy playing Moff Gideon, I think he said it in a
Giancarlo Esposito. Yeah.
I think he might have mentioned it somewhere, or it's somewhere. We'll have to look it up. But I know that in like interviews, they had mentioned.
Have they confirmed any spinoffs yet from this?
Ahsoka.
Season
and Obi-Wan technically will probably tie in somehow.
Yeah, I mean, the future of Star Wars really is probably on Disney, is in the television. Mm-hmm. It fits. It just fits.
And it feels like a movie when you're watching. Like, it's gotten that much better, like the cinematography.
I was just about to say that this episode felt the most in line with the larger Star Wars franchise. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the look of it. Like I had mentioned, the set design looks so good.
How about that dome that they built? Do you guys watch that?
Yeah.
The fact that like people would walk onto the set and not know what was real and what wasn't, like physically standing there because of that screen. That is.
They had some new firmware for that dome this season because it looks great. Let's stay on this episode for a little longer. I wanted to talk about what themes do you guys feel this episode covered, and I wanted to share. One that I had taken a note of, but I think the theme of identity and obedience through doctrine was executed very well. And there's a dichotomy between Din, having his world slightly shaken, his code, being kind of put into question in a sense of identity when he learns that, he grew up under the watch, literally the watch of this religious zealot group. But then you also get Titus Welliver's character, the Imperial captain. Interesting to see on the flip side how in Doctrine the Imperial has their followers.
Mm-hmm.
Like Titus Welliver's character doesn't flinch. I mean, I think he's in that same pose the whole episode. He doesn't flinch when he's told, bring down the ship. He doesn't flinch when, he takes a bite of that suicide pill.
Is that a code word? Long live the Empire? Like, yeah, you're going to have to kill yourself now. Like, because they said that, and then he immediately kills his two pilots.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if the pilots knew shit, not this one.
The one seemed like he did. The guy that looked like, I thought it was Jason Mewes at first.
They both kept looking at each other like they needed to devise a plan to get out of there. But
call that a work. That's what they're saying.
Well, maybe they just know that you're supposed to go down with the ship. But maybe it's like when you get promoted to where Titus Welliver's character is, it's like, now you know.
Yeah.
You got to shoot some people. They don't know that they don't know what you know.
Yeah. But it shows me the terror that the Imperial, the Empire has. It's not just, on the war front and with their logistics and their, the stormtrooper and their actual physical power, but also the psychological warfare that they wage. They have troops that are super loyal as we got to see, but also how they were able to split the Mandalorians up, with something as simple as, hey, your homeworld is no longer, habitable, and that was enough to split, and I'm sure there's a lot more to it.
Apparently there's been a lot of civil wars between the Mandalorians.
Well, we still have to figure out what they meant by that, because Bo-Katan didn't seem to think that was true.
Yeah.
It's the Children of the Watch group that are believing that, and who knows where that's coming from. Maybe they've made that rumor themselves because they don't want their people that they're indoctrinating into their way to have any question. Because if Mandalore is gone, there's nothing to go back to. There's only the way forward. And if Mandalore is actually habitable, it's like, okay, well then let's go back to our roots. And if they go back to the roots, then you have to face the fact that there's people who don't believe what you do. Because the Death Watch were a splinter group. They weren't the minority of Mandalore.
Lars, do you want to make any comments on additional themes that maybe you found in this episode?
Like I said earlier, a lot of political themes about people with completely different ideas of how the world is, and they're only taught this one certain way, and they believe it all to be true and not really challenge with different ideas. And when you are, you sort of realize that the person next to you is more like you than they aren't,
Yeah, I think we saw that with the child. The child's eating those eggs, and he sees that little baby born, and he's like, I can't eat that little baby. That little baby's cute.
That was a good transition. I was worried that he was going to eat the little baby right in front of the parents.
I thought it was we were going to get that at the end when they were flying to the ship, and he was going to pull it out.
Right.
Speaking of the child, I thought the scene where Bo-Katan and her crew rescue Mandalorian and he's like having a hard time kind of catching his breath. I wasn't sure if he was trying to catch his breath or he was like, I'm sure it was a combination of both, but he was very fearful. Like we got to see, and this might be more so to Pedro Pascal's credit, but even behind the mask, I felt that sense of like fear and like urgency of like the baby, the child, like you guys got to go in and rescue them. And of course, like I forgot, I don't know which one of her crew did it, but whoever dived in there, no questions asked, and came out with the child.
That was Sasha Banks' character.
Yeah, Sasha Banks' character. That was epic.
I will say that like when they cast her and they show and you see her in the trailer before, like I was like 75% on board with her being Sabine. And when before I watched the episode, I just jumped on Facebook and then saw one image and then threw my phone. I was like, oh no, what did I see? I saw that image of Bo-Katan when she got onto the cruiser and she like takes everyone out in the hallway and kind of looks back and you kind of see her standing there like by herself in the hallway. And that image was what I saw. And because of the lighting, it looked like there was more purple and like reddish in her. So I thought it was Sabine. I thought they were going to show Sabine. But then when you see her in clear, you can see that it's not those colors. But I thought that, until I saw her not in her armor, that I thought that Sasha was going to be Sabine. And I was kind of all on board for that too, because she's a great character.
Lars, didn't they create like, or the characters for Sasha Banks and then also Axe Wolves? Those aren't like characters from anything, right?
Yeah,
like
and I even looked up like their house names to see, because I remember whenever Maul was in charge with Gar Saxon when they took over Mandalore, there was someone of a similar name, but no, yeah, they're new to me, and as far as I know, they're new characters.
Another thing I've got highlighted here is the choreography. I think this episode proved to me that it's not just Din that gets the best, fight scenes, but
spin kicks.
All of these Mandalorians are just bad at, like, anytime they show up on screen, it was like, damn. I mean, what did they say? How many of them are there? And they're like, I don't know, there's like 10 of them, and it's only a group of 4 Mandalorians like wrecking shop.
Apparently, that with Bo-Katan's character, like the fight scenes in real life were modeled directly after the cartoon. So it was a very similar fighting
It makes
style.
sense. Like when they land on that ship for the first time, it's just like, holy crap, this is like watching Rebels, But and also it's like they're very graceful. They were so skilled,
coordinated,
and then that scene when Din goes down the hallway and he's just a barbarian. He just walks down like taking shots, falls and throws the grenades.
But that's like a reoccurring thing that Din does, is like he literally puts himself in these very uncomfortable, dangerous positions. Whether it's taking a job that he doesn't want to, that has a lot of danger, or like putting himself in the line of fire. Literally, it's always interesting to see how far he'll go to see the success of the mission, because he wants to go back to the child. And I think he's
doing the right thing for the sake of the right thing. And maybe that was why we sort of saw the child, take on that circle of life realization that, no, you can't eat this woman's children in front of her anymore, because this is why. And then he almost wants it as a pet. And even Din Djarin says, like, no, I already have enough pets.
And then we also got what I felt was like a reverse elevator scene from Rogue One. Rogue One, the Darth Vader coming through those doors, chopping them dudes up.
It was the same alarm going off too.
Yeah, and this one was kind of like a reverse aspect, where like the suspense was building, watching the elevator kind of move on up. And then as soon as the doors opened, there was like no moment of like, it was straight to action.
Close all the doors.
All of them. We were watching that and I was like, they're going to come in the back door. Like that's what I was waiting for.
Oh man. Blythe, did you have any themes or other moments that you wanted to highlight?
One of them that I heard that I thought was interesting is that it was a recurring theme throughout the whole episode was rebuilding family lines. So not only like trying to find the child's species, whatever they want to call it, but then also with the frog species, their family line being obviously rebuilt and survives for another day, and then Bo-Katan trying to increase her line and trying to revitalize it. She's the last in her family line, so I thought that was a neat theme throughout the episode, besides like the religious zealot part of it, which I thought was fascinating too.
Lars, being our diehard Star Wars correspondent, what did you feel was maybe the most important takeaway for yourself personally?
I did not expect to hear Ahsoka's name, and when I did, I just jump up out of my bed and gasp and get red-eyed and all these. I mean, I just didn't think they were going to give it to us like that. I thought it was going to be another one of those turning around a corner and pan up from the boots up and there she is, but not like, oh yeah, you got to go to this planet and you find Ahsoka Tano. She's there in a fucking forest.
Yeah, I was not prepared for that to happen yet.
Which makes me think there's a little bit of misdirection there too. Like maybe
I do
Ahsoka
too. I think
isn't.
that it's not. It was given to us now, but it's not going to come easy.
Yeah. I mean, I could see, like Lars said, like an endgame type thing where we don't see Bo-Katan again until this season finale.
That's what I'm thinking.
Where I mean, if you watch Rebels and that is a a trope of the Mandalorians, right? It's like shit looks horrible, and Mandalorians show up. And they even did it twice in this episode. Yeah. That was my one gripe about the episode. It was like, he's in trouble. Mandalorians just fall out of the sky.
Like their own little Jedi sense.
Yeah, very next scene, he's in trouble again. They fall out of the sky. I was like, they couldn't come around the box.
That's what I'm saying. I think that was my only ding against this episode was that weird kind of structure and pacing. It was like we just had this similar scene, 2 seconds ago.
But it was also happening in season 1 too, when he's in trouble several times and the Creed comes in and saves the day.
Yeah, it's
they have their own little.
I guess
Jedi
if you got a jetpack, you use it, right? Like who wouldn't?
True.
So, do we know? And I apologize, this is a stupid question, but do we know who's supposed to be playing Ahsoka? Because
Rosario Dawson.
Rosario Dawson is rumored. Yeah,
which is, awesome.
How do y'all feel about
cool.
Is it Katie playing her real life character versus Ashley Eckstein not playing her character?
I think it's sad in a way, but I understand it. Ashley, I follow her on Facebook. I met her a couple of times, or I follow on Instagram. Sorry, and I met her a couple of times. She's like the nicest person in the world. She is. Sorry. I'm going to get choked up. She is Ahsoka Tano. She cares about that character so fucking much. And whenever they sort of, the insider information about Rosario Dawson came out, you could obviously tell she had no idea. She didn't even know. Not to say it's been confirmed, but I think it sort of has, because the way that she approached it, and she did an Instagram live to talk to her fans about it, how if this was the truth, she was okay with it and she understood, and a lot of people were upset, and it's understandable. Like with Maul, they've had the same person play Maul, but they've had Sam Witwer voice him in Solo, because he's the voice of Maul now that people have known, really. So it's sad. It's a bummer, because she's such a fucking nice person. She has made that character who it is, but does she fit? Sadly, probably not.
Yeah. She doesn't.
And
really fit.
And it's a shame that we have to say that, because it's not about she's there's nothing wrong with her, right? It's just that she's voicing a character that was displayed in a certain way. She looks a certain way. And it's the same. I wonder after seeing, seeing the animated show and just seeing how well Katie Sackhoff transitioned into the live action and she did the voice, it makes me wonder if David Filoni just had her in mind when they kind of did those designs early on, because that fit, but they didn't, when I heard Rosario Dawson was cast, having seen lots of things that Rosario Dawson has done, there's something about her mannerisms, the way that she delivers lines, that feels like how they animated Ahsoka Tano. So I think it's good casting, but as Laura said, it's also sad that Ashley can't do that live action. But would it fit? Would it be the visual that we expect?
Because that's with Ashley Eckstein. Like, she was one of the bigger sort of female, I guess, women in like the world of geekdom, nerddom. She was very
her
early
universe
on.
is huge.
Yeah,
Sure.
and now she was one of the first companies to come out with female focused clothing for the nerd girls out there. And I remember covering her from a very like early on in my blogging days. But to see, she's more of like a bubblegum pop kind of look to her.
Yeah.
Not a Jedi fighter.
And like they even like she's had amazing cosplays as
Yes.
Ahsoka, and they're good cosplays, but I wouldn't say
Are they practical?
that
for us?
I wouldn't say that would, if I'm putting millions of dollars into a show to make the best thing possible, I
Right.
wouldn't say that's what it is.
And then secondary, if you were to try to take her voice and put it over Rosario, I doubt that would be a deal break. Probably a deal breaker for Rosario.
I know. I was
Like,
just gonna ask you guys what you guys thought about that, because they, like you said, they did it with Maul, right? Like Ray Park did not voice Maul. It was Peter Serafinowicz in the movies, and then like you said, it was what's his name?
Sam Witwer.
Who's awesome, by the way. Sam Witwer also does like the Emperor too, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah, like he's fantastic, and he is
I believe.
from the video games. He's like the body actor,
Star Killer.
Yeah.
Killer.
Yeah. Well, I think we're getting to a good stopping point for this week's review, but I wanted to go around the table and give everyone a chance to give maybe their last minute comments, maybe to something you didn't bring up yet regarding episode 3. And then if you want to maybe share any best guesses for where we go next. Lars, I'll start out with you, man.
Sorry, I'm still thinking about Ashley Eckstein. I got real bummed out. Where do I think it's going to go next? I think we're going to have what people consider to be a filler episode. I don't know. Maybe hopefully he goes and gets the fucking Razor Crest fixed up. So we might go back to Tatooine and we might see some more Boba stuff sort of fleshed out, which might be cool. Something sort of in between. Like,
And Cara Dune, we haven't seen her yet, and they were prominent in the trailers.
I think we need to get the Razor Crest fixed first and foremost,
Yeah,
guys.
it's looking
We
like
need
a
that
like
Razor
a
Crest
hoopty,
in
man.
the shop.
Yeah, you can be driving around with a child in a hoopty. No
Yeah.
seatbelt.
Fishnet everywhere.
That's how you get pulled over again. Like, I'm surprised they didn't give him a ticket the first time. Blythe, closing comments and best guesses for next episode.
Best guesses for the next 2 episodes. I will say that we at least see. I would imagine that they end the episode for next week with seeing Ahsoka, but you don't actually hear her speak until episode 5. But I would say overall, for I guess my final thoughts was just the female empowerment for this episode. It was just really strong for me, like as a woman watching Star Wars, to see like the Bo-Katan character, to dive into her lore, to learn more about her. Like, one of my favorite lines from this episode was whenever Mando comes back and he's walking through that like shady village with the child, and the other guy comes out and he's like, "You killed my brother." And then Bo-Katan's character comes out and she's like, "He didn't kill your brother, I did." And then she kills the other brother, and then she says, "Can I buy you a drink?" That was my favorite line of the whole show. So I think like that, just female empowerment wise, like that was great.
I can't wait for you guys to watch Rebels. Have the tissue boxes ready. That's all I'm gonna say, because there's
You'll find yourself crying over a droid.
there is just masterful character development and emotionally tied like storytelling. Like it's just so good. So much stuff with Mandalore, with Sabine and her family, and it's good.
Yeah, learning more about her she's like the tech nerd, the graffiti artist, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's good. She's like the explosive. She likes to blow stuff up.
I like her
Yeah.
already.
She went to the Imperial Academy actually, and then left. Yeah.
Yeah, and that they touch on that pretty heavily in Rebels. For next episode, we could get. I don't know. I'd be surprised if we saw Ahsoka already. There might be some character work they need to do with Din first.
Yep.
Right? Like it could be a slower episode where he's going to have to, where he faces his demons now. Like you said, he was kind of defiant when they said that. He brushed it off when they told him that there was another way, and he just like went about his business. They haven't paid that off yet. They might be some soul searching happening where, will he take his helmet off right away? Maybe not. Who knows? And like you said, like is he still on the ship? Wait, how did it end? Where did it go?
He was on the ship. He was on his way.
They
He lived
jumped
it
to
They
hyper
jumped.
speed, and then the little piece fell off of the ship.
Yeah.
Several pieces.
Yeah. He was in the Razor Crest.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Life, you wrote down the name of the planet they're going to, right? What's the next planet?
It's a new planet, I found out, but it's Corvus. Apparently, it was named after a former Empire ship, but now it's a planet that they don't know anything about.
Well, I think I'm on board with what all of you guys have kind of predicted for next episode. I think we will get a slower one. I do hope that we get a chance to see Din kind of reflect on what he's learned, and maybe we get more of the flashbacks of his upbringing. I would like to see maybe his time as maybe a teenager or older than we saw in season 1. Him kind of going through and learning more, getting trained. I wouldn't mind having.
And I wonder where
break.
his I guess his classmates are. That were all taken during this purge. Or was it really, I guess, technically the purge? Or
That was Clone Wars, because those were not super commandos, but you're talking about when he was grabbed.
yeah, because there was a comparison made to the scene where when he was first rescued, and then there was a similar scene in this episode that we're talking about right now, where maybe it was Bo-Katan's character reached through where he's drowning, and it was the same scene where he's kind of getting rescued.
The Purge of Mandalore happened way after the Clone Wars when he was rescued.
It had to have happened after Rebels, but sort of the beginning of A New Hope, because that's where the Darksaber must have exchanged hands.
Yeah.
So
That's part that we don't know yet.
Yeah, he was taken during the Clone Wars because those were the super battle droids that we saw. Yeah.
I think Adam said it best earlier. We got a lot of information. I think we have a lot of questions, and we'll see how things progress. With that being said, I think that is the end of our show, Shortbox Nation. How was it? Did we miss anything? Do you want to chime in with a thought or share something with us to read next episode? Let us know by sending us a short email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com. I personally want to recognize and thank the people who made this episode possible. Our sponsor, Gotham City Limit. My panel today, Blythe, Lars, and Adam. Thank you guys again. And the group of Shortbox zealots that keep the lights on here at Shortbox Studios are Shortbox patrons. If you enjoy the podcast and are in a position to contribute or donate to support the show and keep this thing going, consider becoming a Shortbox patron. Visit patreon.com/theshortbox to find out more. Thanks again for hanging out and sharing your time with us. You could be listening to any other podcast, but you're here with us, and that means a lot. We'll be back next week to cover episode 4. And of course, don't forget to check out our regular weekly episodes that drop every Wednesday, especially if you're a fan of comic books. In the meantime, continue to make mine and yours Shortbox. It is the way. Have a great week.